and not have a backup plan and not even know what that looks like. I didn't think that was a very responsible move. I think that it was. I think it's something that they thought about, and okay, we'll just do this. We'll see what comes about. See the community reacts. Kind of go from there. You know, I've taken a lot of interest in that particular item. I do not plan on having our harbor patrol go dark for a 24-hour period once every 5 days. You know, everyone has to realize that the harbor is bleeding money right now, left, right, and center. But to save ourselves a couple $100,000, like Mayor Brand pointed out one time, we have one yacht that's worth $200,000 catch on fire. It'll catch another boat on fire really quickly, and it happens at 7 o'clock at night, and it takes the firemen an extra 15 minutes to get down there. Then how is that appropriate? How is that okay? One thing I've looked at in the city and the fire service is we're cutting a lot of frontline personnel right now, and we're not pushing much off onto the management side. And I've been taking a hard look at that, and I personally don't believe it is a viable option to cut that harbor patrol down to nothing. We'll see. I'm working on a solution for that. I think there is a solution there to have continued support and operations in the harbor, 24/7 service. We'll see what that ends up and what it looks like to be. But for them to surprise us like this, I don't think I'll be able to have an answer for you right now, or maybe on Tuesday. It's going to be. I've got things in the works to I'm thinking about. So those are my concerns on there. Very valid concerns.
Yeah. Nils, I had one other quick question. I don't mean to monopolize it, but since we're talking about public safety and service to our community, can we finally get the rest of the council to agree to at least complete the fire department surveying? That has potential, I think, was it between $3 and $7 million a year. Now, granted, they can't flip the switch and suddenly save money. It's going to take a long time, but maybe that's something we should be exploring again, as opposed to, after we make these very tough draconian cuts. It seems like that's a logical step to look at, and I don't see how anyone in the council could be against them just doing the exploratory review of that.
Especially since there's no cost to the review, not even the 25,000 additional costs that we had talked about before, because the union has agreed to pay that. So it's a no-cost option to explore that further.
Well, actually, to add one thing, Jerry, I've talked to the fire department union member. Unfortunately, while they offered that originally, they don't have the money to pay for it now, so that cost would still be there. However, what I understand is that if the city later on were to actually contract with the county would reimburse that fee back to the city. So either way, it could be no cost, But it's something that I know they offered at the time, and obviously they're experiencing crunches as well as the city is too. So they pull that offer off the table just right now.
Even if we have to pay the 25,000, you've got an option here of a $25,000 maximum cost to give you a cost savings of anywhere from 0 to 7 million. There's a wide range of what that cost figure is. But I would agree that's a step that we should take just to do the analysis.
Yeah, you don't usually get that good of a 30 or 40x return in the stock market. I mean, this is a pretty darn good option. If it's true, it's great. But if it's we need to at least do our due diligence before we start cutting services. And I just hope someone doesn't get hurt from some of these cuts.
So $25,000 is nothing. I've racked up more than $25,000 in legal bills this year alone. So I can tell you 25 grand is absolutely nothing. That's not very much at all. It's paltry, it's puny, it's ridiculous. It's absurd that we have not gone down this path with County Fire to further explore the second phase of the option and then fully look at what you can contract out to the county. You never want to end up in a situation where you're forced to go down a certain path when you show up at the bargaining table and you're forced to make certain decisions. That is a weak bargaining position, and it is a horrible bargaining position. No one should ever go in a bargaining room and bargain from a point of weakness. That is called Hermosa Beach. And Hermosa Beach bargained from a point of weakness. They were forced to go down this path because they had so many injuries. They had firefighters working every single day and every other day. They were borrowing firefighters from City of Manhattan Beach, from City Redondo. They had 3 shifts of firefighters, plus that actually, and they couldn't fill a 3-day shift of firefighters. And the fact that we haven't done this study only shows you how badly this has been mismanaged in the fire department. I mean, just overall completely mismanaged. And now we're cutting what, Councilman Horvath said during the discussion that we're a skeletal crew in, actually, excuse me, I take it back. Kenny Campos said we're a skeletal crew in Redondo Beach. And Councilman Horvath came through and talked about, oh yeah, we're a skeletal crew, but now we're going less than that because the county is proposing, and one of their options is to go less than that. Well, guess what? We're losing actually firefighter service now for a higher cost, and we're getting less service on our own. So it's I think it's a bad situation to be in right now. Horrible situation to be in right now for us. I think there's ways forward to make us not cut those frontline firefighters. It's going to take the council to come to agree and make some hard decisions. We don't want to be in a situation with Hermosa. I said this back during the meetings last year that we're going down the path of Hermosa Beach. And here we are a year later, and we're cutting not just fat, not just meat, we're cutting actual bone now, frontline firefighters, and we're getting a reduced level of service at the same level and the same cost to the city. And when we're cutting positions and the total overall cost because of overtime ends up being the same, it's an issue. We need to engage other cities about fire services. We need to rethink our entire fire department as a whole. And the $25,000, I think, was an excuse to not go down this path. And now, unfortunately, we're paying the price for that. So, yeah, I feel very strongly about this because I see, a year ago we could have had a plan in place, at least something in place, to help us augment services, whether it's from paramedic services or fire services, in many different forms and fashions. We can rethink our fire department. We can rethink how we do business. But what we're doing right now is not rethinking. It's our hand is being forced by outside issues, budget issues that we don't have control over. And it's an issue. And I agree with you. I think we can move forward in a better way. And I'm definitely going to be looking at the fire department very closely this year in the budget to make sure that we have more options in what staff is presenting us and different ideas, different thoughts. So we'll see if we can make that happen. But those are my thoughts on that. That's for sure. Anyone else? Any questions on the budget?
One other thing, Nelson, I know this might be more of a touchy subject for some, but memory serves me, our city attorney is like the 5th highest paid official in the state of California and makes more than
elected official,
and actually makes more than the governor of California. I know that the city treasurer decided to do a cut in his pay, but offset it with the staff. Has any thought gone into, since this is an elected position, why are we paying our city attorneys so much when most of the work he doesn't even do and subcontracts it out to other attorneys for other special functions anyway? I don't know if that's an easy process to change. If we did do that, what would be the mechanism to actually let the public have a say in where our money is going in that regard?
So just so everyone knows, in City of Redondo Beach, we have multiple elected positions. We have obviously the city council that's elected, the mayor that's elected. We also have the city treasurer who's elected, the city clerk who's elected, and an elected city attorney. They essentially all have their own departments. And if they want to cut their own pay, they have to voluntarily say, we're going to cut their pay. The council can come to all those personnel and say, hey, we'd like to cut your pay. And they would have to agree to it individually. But, I don't think we as a council, well, actually maybe we can, but our city attorney is an elected official, and elected officials get elected on their on their political affiliations and their political thoughts, their political mindset. They have an agenda. That's why they get elected. So, that's a question for our city attorney to ask. That is a question that will go down. We have a lot of legal issues in Redondo Beach right now. We have a lot of lawsuits in our court that have been thrown against us. Some good questions there. I really can't answer you that question. I had a question here going back regarding police, regarding RBPD's jurisdiction is inside the harbor. What percentage of the boat personnel is coming out of Harbor Enterprise? I'm not exactly sure the numbers of the Harbor Enterprise or the amount of money, I should say, that's coming out of Harbor Enterprise, internal and from Retideland and Harbor Enterprise, which are two different funds in the harbor. I'm not exactly sure how much money that is and what the percentage of it is, but I will say that I know it's being cut back. I don't have the budget report directly in front of me, but I think it's a good question to have. Police is a hard one, right? We need to have police in the harbor. Here's a question. Body sets the salaries for our elected officials. So Steve asked the question, how much are salaries for elected officials? So you can look us all up on Transparent California. I make $927. All council members and mayor make $927 a month and a car stipend. And we get healthcare if we want to take it. And that's our pay for a job that is anywhere between 30 and plus hours a week doing this stuff. So it's not much. It's very little.
The question was, what body sets the salaries for elected officials?
The council. The council.
The council could choose to change the city attorney's salary.
Yeah. So going back to the question earlier, I have not voted on the city managers pay. I've not voted on the city attorney's pay, city treasurer's pay, city clerk's pay. City clerk asked for a pay increase last year, 3%, and we said no. So it's done by ordinance. It's a good question. I'll have to bring that up on Tuesday. If we could just unilaterally cut the pay of another elected official in the city, but everything is approved through the council. So that's the ultimate. We're the ones who are ultimately responsible for everything in the city that goes on.
Thank you for that answer. But it seems to me that if we're making draconian cuts to public services, we ought to be taking the same cuts to the salaries of our public officials.
Yeah, I mean I mean, just personally, it's kind of hard for us and on the council to take a pay cut. I want to institute some reforms, but yeah, you're right. I mean, city treasurer, he makes 25 grand a year. City clerk, I'm not sure what the pay is there, and the city attorney, you can look everyone's numbers up on Transparent California. So I think the option there, what these people have all been saying, is we'll cut the department through maintenance and operations and other things other than cutting their own pay. Yeah, you're right, Steve. It's some question I'll be bringing up on Tuesday. Actually, good question. Sarah, you had your hand up. You have a question still? I saw you had a question that I think I answered through the chat box, Sarah, but if you want to unmute yourself, there you go.
Yeah, my question was about jurisdiction of the police boat. As I understand that they have jurisdiction within the harbor. So under what jurisdiction do they go out of the harbor to patrol the coast during the protests and otherwise exit the harbor?
Great question. So police have, as far as I understand, the jurisdiction for a city, it's up to either 1 mile out or 3 miles out. I forgot exactly. I think it's 1 mile outside of the city boundaries on the ocean. where we can enforce our local ordinances and county ordinances, and depending upon if you're on a pier and things like that. We cannot go into other cities like Manhattan Beach or Hermosa Beach and enforce their laws unless we have an MOU in place that allows us to enforce that. Same thing with the county. So we can only enforce something there where we have on paper that is allows us to enforce their ordinance. So Manhattan Beach, we just signed an agreement with the last two council meetings ago, where we have an understanding where they can put a personnel on our boat and we can enforce some of their laws and on the water. Same thing with El Segundo. I don't believe I've seen that agreement come through for Hermosa Beach yet. Chief Kaufman's done a great job with working with other cities and getting them on board, so to speak, with the boat and jurisdiction and things like having their officers on our boat as well. They will not be driving our boat. They will only be allowed to be trained and be on our vessel as we cruise out there. Coast Guard, I believe our boat is a part of the Homeland Security team, along with the sheriffs and Port of LA security. So they will do work out in the channel. They will do work further out, 3, 4, 5 miles out, for the various activities that happen out there. With that said, the number one thing I said about this boat when we bought it was I don't want our officers out in the channel doing enforcement actions, doing any type of actions that they can get hurt on. If we aren't taking care of our harbor and our backyard and our front yard, why are we going out to somebody else's front yard and backyard and other people's jurisdictions? There's some training and education that needs to happen with our officers, and I agree with that. Working with other departments is fantastic. I wish all of our departments did a great job of that. But with that said, I was very concerned, and still am very concerned today, with our police boat going to Hermosa and picking up kayakers, or our police boat going out to Manhattan Beach and enforcing ordinances. They really do belong inside the harbor, and we don't have a harbor boat. We have a open water boat. If you see it, it's a very powerful boat. So Scott, you have your hand raised. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask any question you would like, you have the floor. I don't think I saw a question in the chat room, so you're unmuted. Go for it.
Hey, Nils, this is Gil.
No, Gil, sorry.
Yeah,
Scout.
that's okay. I threw another name on. Okay, let's get back to the city attorney issue. And I know it's a little sticky for you. We get that. Okay, so in essence, to kind of, I guess, spread the information about, would it not be better then possibly, after you broach the subject, of the community banding together to looking at some of these positions that are somewhat bloated when it comes down to pay? I mean, the argument against reducing his pay is that if we do that for him, as well as the assistant city attorney, that we will no longer get qualified people, which is, but you know, that's one thing. But he farms out most of the work anyway. And again, so would it be better if we band together as a community saying, hey, look, this guy's making what, 600,000 plus. He's only managing 5 people. The city attorney in Los Angeles is handling 300 attorneys. So in essence, we could hire another city attorney if we cut his pay in half, and he's still making more than the LA city attorney. But see, again, everybody's gonna have to tighten their belt, and if we're paying this guy that much. So would it be best then is that as a community, we get together and start pushing this a little more and broaching the subject?
There is nothing more powerful than residents coming together and pushing a subject publicly, asking questions and making hay and protesting about something. That's why I'm sitting here in this seat with a council title in front of my name. I couldn't agree more with banding together and asking questions. Our city has had a long history of just kind of letting the people run things and have things happen. There's some things that you said are 100% right. Our city attorney's office hires and contracts out the majority of the work that's happening. Very little is actually done in-house, and they do a great job. Don't get us wrong. They are very busy. But if you compare the elected officials to other elected city attorneys in other cities, I think you'll start finding a lot of interesting questions happen and popping up. And the real question here is, as I've gotten into this position, I deal with a lot of city attorneys, and I deal with a lot of other elected officials and non-elected officials in other cities. So from city clerks, city treasurers, city managers, city attorneys, I deal with it all, and in other cities. And I think our community has to have a real question, real fundamental question about our city attorney position, why it's elected. And
Well, again, we understand the election stuff, but again, he supervises a staff of 7.
yeah,
That's it. Okay. Again, and he's making 469,000.
yeah,
Almost.
it's actually 429,000, I believe.
469,
Oh,
794.73 cents.
oh wow, there you go.
Okay. Plus whatever perk that may pop up on a vehicle or whatever else, and who knows whether it's a salaried or an overtime position.
That's total benefits.
That's
A total benefits package. You always have to look at total benefits package and include that and say that, because the taxpayers are paying for medical, for health insurance, for retirement, and all the other pay that goes along with it, and the debt. the
Everybody
coverage
else
debt.
is making over 200,000,
And everybody else is making over 200,000.
almost
Okay.
300.
So again, and you have 2 assistants and 5 seniors. I mean, the structure aside, okay, the biggest question is going to be is who sets the salary and how do you adjust it? And I think the issue is going to come up possibly on the legal side is that how do we address this before the next election cycle? Because then I don't believe that you can reduce his pay during that, in the middle of the election cycle. It actually makes it easier when the next cycle comes in, if the new guy, where he decides to stay, he's gonna stay, he or she, at a reduced rate.
So I think you can actually change his pay during the cycle, because it's not, I don't believe, you might be right. I don't know the exact answer on that. I know it's done by ordinance, and I know it's set by ordinance. You can look it up actually in the ordinance itself. The city attorney's office shall get a 3% pay raise, every year, or whatever the exact verbiage is. I'm not exactly sure, but
Well,
you're
how
right.
about this? Here's another question that comes up. Who can order or have an audit of the city attorney's office? Not that we're trying to be punitive. To
Yeah,
determine
no, I understand.
how many lawsuits have the city engaged in? How many were farmed out to outside counsel? And what is the loss in win rate? And whether or not it's feasible to have 6 city attorneys or just hire an outside counsel?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And listen, it is not a personal issue by any means. This is a budget issue, and we have to ensure that we're getting the best bang for the buck. We are in hard times right now. We are actively cutting frontline fire, frontline police positions.
The city attorney.
And the city attorney's office, they do a great job, but we need to look at the entire budget as a whole. And you're absolutely right. It is a tough conversation to have, but it needs to be had right now. I agree with you 100%. And I think the questions you need to be asking are exactly what you asked, in addition to how many, the amount of this. I know this came up during the budget and finance meeting about 8 months ago. And the question was, how much do we spend on outside counsel?
Yeah.
How much are we spending on each firm for outside counsel? What's the list of outside counsel that we have the ability to hire for? What's the ability to renegotiate some of those terms? That's an important question to have. Success rate, somebody brought up a success rate. That's a very difficult one to say, because judge, when you go in front of a judge, they can be very emotional with things, and you don't know the outcome of it. So I think comparing to other cities, Huntington Beach, look at Huntington Beach. They're a very similar city to ours. They are much larger, like 200,000 people, but they have an elected city attorney as well. And he's very active politically speaking. He runs a lot of attorneys as well. And I think you'll see some things in there from a coastal beachside community that has elected city attorney and how he runs his department and what he does. I think, I think, Gil, these are questions that can be brought up in during election time if someone wants to run in that position. Or remember, I just want to remind everyone that the city attorney's office hasn't been contested since 2008, I want to say. So I'm not exactly sure the date, but it's been well over 10 years. So 2 or 3.
Okay, so will you bring this up
Yes.
during the next council meeting and indicating that I would say a portion of your constituents are curious about this? I mean, if obviously if he believes that he's well worth the amount we're paying, then obviously one, either we see results or not. Because one of the bigger issues that occurred is his reluctance, and again, that's why I'm not saying it's personal, but his very reluctance to address the issues concerning the homelessness. He stands there and smiles, and it's okay. But the Manhattan Beach city attorney is very aggressive and interprets the law differently. Now, the other thing that you're going to have to look at and bring up possibly is that if our police are arresting less people because of all the other the rules and laws that are coming around on the state, if they're arresting less, that means that it requires less city attorneys to prosecute these, if they're even doing that. Most of this goes to the district attorney anyway. So again, it's one of the things that he's going to have to weigh as to whether he gives himself up or does he give up one of his people.
You're absolutely right. And I've just so you know, I've written these questions down, and I think they're fantastic questions. I haven't concentrated that much yet on the budget on the city attorney side. I've been busy with other portions of it, but I actually had this note down to talk with the city attorney and the budget cuts and what goes on over there for the costs that we're getting. That department has been increasing in costs dramatically the last couple of years. We've gotten a lot more lawsuits been thrown at us, ridiculous lawsuits, I might say. But to answer part of your question regarding homelessness, he will point to him hiring a quality of life prosecutor. It's Joy Abequine, which deals with homelessness issues and things like quality of life issues, short-term rentals, things like that. That would be his response. Is I've hired an attorney who now goes down to the courthouse 51 or 8. I'm not sure what number it is. Some courthouse, and she's there and prosecuting homeless issues. And he said he didn't have the resources before to prosecute those homeless issues. Now he does. And I think one of the reluctances he says it publicly all the time, is his conservative nature in dealing with the legal issues and his very conservative way of thinking from a negative standpoint of us winning something and moving things forward in the courtroom is one of his principles. So he will take a very conservative look at things. Can I really enforce the anti-camping ordinance? Can I have something available to me, like for instance, a bed in Bellflower at Salvation Army facility, and say, that's my bed that I have available, it's open, now I can enforce my anti-camping? He will say, no, absolutely not. Other cities like Manhattan Beach will say, well, yeah, I spent $100,000 last year on a couple of beds over there, 2 beds. So I'm going to enforce my anti-camping. Now, what actually happens might be different. But I think to answer your question is that is a result of his many years of being in that office and going down that path. So I will ask these questions. You're 100% right, and I'll go down that path on Tuesday, and I'll ask him privately as well next couple of days before I get there and talk about it.
I think also if you could give it a broader brush in indicating that we should possibly take a look at all our managers to see what they're doing, if they're comparable to what other cities in the area are paying as well. I mean, because what it appears that when you ask a police officer or a firefighter or even a clerk typist to take a $500, $400 hit every month, you know, like they did a while back when they reduced the pay, that's not a, you know, that's a drop in a bucket over to for the city attorney or for the city manager. So again, the thing is that I think we should take a look at most of the management level pay to determine whether it is comparable to everybody else. We're not trying to do, I wouldn't want to do this on the cheap. I do believe we need quality people.
Yeah.
And we should pay them as well, but we should get good quality service as well.
Yeah, I 100% agreed. And to that point exactly, we pay our personnel Redondo Beach really, really, really well. You compare us with other cities, we do a phenomenal job at paying our employees and taking care of our employees financially and with the benefits and everything else that goes along with it. We really do. And so we should be getting that higher level of service. And so looking at that now, city management staff or city manager's office will tell you that when we had in 2008, we furloughed or we had a 6% pay cut across the board. The city employees said we never got that money back. Well, it's not true. We did. They did over the years get that 6% and then some back. And these last few years, we've been paying bonuses to the employees. So not as a perishable benefit, but as just a cash. Hey, we have extra money, and we're going to disperse it to all the employees. So it's a very fair conversation to have. I agree with you on that. But also, one thing we've been doing in many departments, except for the fire department, is cutting some of the management staff or directly below the department heads and pushing those responsibilities back onto the department heads. It's happening in every single department right now except the fire department. So if we wanted to do a pay cut to employees, we'd have to go back to each employee group and ask for that, whether it's from furloughs or a direct pay cut. I don't think you're going to see it happen. So that's why you're seeing this tact being taken by city management of just not filling vacant positions, deauthorizing positions, and not funding positions, which are three different methods to manage the budget. So when it comes to furloughs and pay cuts, we have to go through the unions, and we can't just flat out say you're getting a pay cut. Any other questions from anyone else before I move on? Okay, so I got those notes being written down. Thanks for those comments. I've got some questions here that came in regarding, some people asked electric bikes and electric scooters on the bike path by Shade Hotel. Yes, they are allowed because they go less than 15 miles an hour. As long as you go 15 miles an hour or less, those do not count as motorized vehicles. If they go 15 miles an hour or more, they do count as motorized vehicles. I think motorized skateboards are not allowed on the bike path for LA County, but people just go ahead and use it. It hasn't been too much of a problem. I haven't seen too much of a problem on that. LA County does not allow, has the same ordinances in place as we do. So that's one of the questions that I had. Wanted to go over. Also, sad to report, there was an old wine shop on the northeast corner of Torrance and Broadway. It's an old building. I picked up a photo the other day, a couple months ago. Actually, it was a year ago, actually. They're going to demo that old wine shop, those commercial businesses, and they're going to put in some condos. If anyone knows the exact number, feel free to jump on right now. I meant to get that picture out and show that. I didn't have.
I don't think they could build more than 3 or 4 because of the size of the lot. When it was for sale, I actually had a client of mine looking at it, and we talked to the building department about it.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's 3 or 4. It's no more than that. But it's the old wine shop. Everyone knows the old wine shop on that corner there. I haven't driven by there myself, but I got a message that it was being worked on. It's going to be demoed and rebuilt, which is exactly what we don't need in Redondo Beach, was more residential and less commercial. So it's sad to see, you know, but there's not much we can do about it. The zoning is there and it's in place, and we can't do anything about it. So, yeah, change the zoning, get that general plan done, and move forward with rezoning our commercial, keep it commercial, not residential. But then we run into problem with the state, which is trying to force more housing and more residential down towards us. But you know, there's only so much we can do. Let's see here. Any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat box. COVID Legato update. Oh, Legato update. Yes, don't want to forget this. I have been in contact with a guy named Phil over at Legato. He's supposed to get back to me. They are actively starting to do demo, cut down trees, clean out the buildings, do basic general cleanup, site demo, not building demo. They put up their sound wall. Their sound wall is in place. They are clearing out the hotel. They are removing, both in the hotel and the Bristol Farms location, they're removing all hazmat. After they get done with that, SCE will be on site and they will be retrenching or trenching electrical lines over to International House of the Pancake House. And there is a shared utility line goes in within their property, and so they're moving that to the back portion of the property. So when all that is done, they will apply for their demo permit, and they will demo the old Bristol Farms, and they will build a 6-story building, 3 stories of underground parking and 3 stories of above ground residential and commercial. So take a picture of the place now with your picture outside of it before it's gone. And then expect here in the next few weeks for that to start happening. It's sad to see it go. They wish they would have done something differently than put apartments there, but that's the way it was zoned, and so that's what they got. So we can't do anything about it at this point in time. Let's see. Anything else? Any other questions out there? I don't see any hands raised. We went over a lot. Anyone have anything? Wayne?
I had one question just about construction. I know that's not in District 1, but on Catalina, I think it's about near where that Catalina Coffee used to be. What's the status of that project? Has that been put on hold, or are they just? I know that there was something with the owner and some either they lost the lease or lost the mortgage or something. It was some weird thing. Is that continuing, or is that just on hold?
I don't know. We signed an environmental impact report agreement with them. They put down a bond. They were doing the work. City was doing the work and billing the developer or landowner for the work through our environmental company. I haven't heard anything from them about it. I've heard rumors, but I haven't heard anything officially. It hasn't come back to the council on that either. So I really have no idea what's going on with that.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I asked is that was like a 24-unit project, I think, and I was just thinking of the traffic, that'll obviously cause. So.
Yeah. Again, that's more commercial. That would be disappearing. Exactly what we don't need. Holly, you had your hand raised. Question? Go ahead and unmute.
Oh, am I? Oh, no, I'm needed, right? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We can hear you just fine.
Yeah. I just want to know. You know how in the past when you've had council meetings that have been really full and then you have a televised screen outside and people could sit outside and watch the meeting?
Yes.
Couldn't we just sit outside and watch the meeting now? And if you have the chairs placed 6 feet apart and stuff, and then have a microphone out there so you could ask questions? Because the way you're doing stuff is really not very user-friendly.
I couldn't agree with you more, Holly. There's only so much I can push. There's only so much I can try to move forward on. I've tried getting public comment installed. It's a city clerk issue, what they're comfortable with. We just voted on this last week, Tuesday, to get public comment on Zoom. We have a council chamber that needs to have the technology upgrades done to it properly. And then we need to have staff properly trained, managed, and moving forward on it. I couldn't agree with you more. something needs to be done differently. We're moving forward on it very slowly. I've had issues. I've publicly called out our city manager and for not having it and lack of ability. So I'm here to provide those services. Whatever, if they need money, if they need services, let's just move it forward. Unfortunately, we haven't had that. Last week, Tuesday, we voted on getting Zoom installed and for the community. Hopefully it happens sooner or later by July 1, by the first meeting in July. We'll see. They finally got the Harbor Commission and the Budget and Finance on Zoom. I didn't think it was that hard, but they made it seem really hard. It's a frustrating portion of my job when I'm trying to get more transparency and more access. I'm pushing. I understand, Holly. I hear you on that. But no, the answer right now is we're in a hole. Any other questions from you, Holly, on that? Your hand's still raised. Any follow-up? If not, you can take your hand down. Don't worry about it. And I can move on to the next one. There you go. Hand is down. All right, Dan Brown, you have a question about something, about anything? And you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks, Nels. I agree with Holly, first of all. I think you should do that. You've done it in the past. But
Yeah.
my question is, on South Broadway, they started to trim the trees, but they stopped south of us. And I'm wondering, is there still tree trimming going on, or did you stop that? And when can we expect it up here if it's still going?
So what block did you say you were on again?
Broadway.
Broadway.
South,
Okay.
South Broadway 400.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You're across. Yes. Yeah. So you should be in the grid for grid 1. I will check for you right now. Ted. Grid 1. What is the boundary? I will find out for you. You should be grid 1. I thought grid 1 goes up until Torrance Boulevard, or actually just past Torrance Boulevard. It could be on this side where you are. You could be the demarcation zone. That's kind of the gray area between where the grids mark. They have the city broken up into 4 different grids, and grid 1 it's getting cut right now. And they should be done with cutting grid 1. So if they haven't gotten to you, you might be grid 2. So and that starts off actually in July. Grid 2 starts off in July, okay. August. So if you are grid 2, you'll be cutting grid 2 and starting in July.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you want to ask him about the letter? Or
Any other questions? Dan, did you have any questions? You are still, you still have your hand up and you are not on mute right now. So you can go ahead and ask any questions you want. You still have the floor if you want.
Okay. I just have a question about Mayor Brandt's letter to Sacramento regarding the stack and pack housing.
Yeah.
And I just thought something that he could add to the letter is that the data from COVID-19 pandemic show that high population density is the main risk factor for disease spread. These viruses will be around in perpetuity, so we should plan ahead and not pack more people into small spaces. And I think adding the public health issue in, since public health has been the justification for all actions over the last 3 months, perhaps the state will recognize that.
There's no way they're going to recognize that. They want to stack and pack as much as they can. That's the honest answer. But yes, I will absolutely have him put that in there. I think that's in a blue folder item, or maybe it's in the folder right now.
I think it's P1.
Yeah. I have not read that letter myself yet. P1. Density. Yeah, Mayor Brandt and I have had that conversation many times regarding density. He'll also say that Hong Kong, which is one of the densest populations in the world, has not been hit very hard with the COVID virus because they have been doing social distancing and face masks and cleaning and things like that. I think there's definitely something to that, but also we don't live in Hong Kong.
No,
where-
you have New York as the example for the United States. Hong Kong is a completely different story, and they live differently, and they wear masks all the time
Yeah.
anyway for air pollution. And they wear good masks, not those silly cotton things. So, that have 97% particle transmission.
Right.
So no, you can't compare the United States to Hong Kong, but what the data is comparing is New York City to other areas of the country. And public health has been used as the justification for taking away various things and changing public policy. So why can't it start changing public policy on stack and pack? And it's one of the reasons they were able to find the virus in feces in apartments in Wuhan, several floors down, just because of this whole stack and pack idea. But no, nobody's saying to use Hong Kong is not a good example for the United States. It's a completely different society, and they do things completely differently over there. But New York, look at the data from New York.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's, it's so complicated. Every society is different, how they interact with each other, from public transportation to social, whether you give another person a hug or not. In Australia, you don't give people hugs. You don't do that. You just don't. That's just not their social thing. Germany has been looked at like, that they managed this coronavirus so well, but Germany does things completely different. They don't have a real central health department like the United States has. They let every state govern their own central health.
Right. That's why we need to look at New York. Just forget about other countries.
Yeah.
And all that you can't compare to other countries, and you can never use Singapore to compare by.
Yeah.
So, but we have our own. We have New York. New York is in the United States, and there's plenty of data from that.
Yeah, and I think if you look at California as a whole, we started the shutdown mid-March, I think it was March 16th,
Yes,
something like that,
March
right?
15th.
But we had our first confirmed death from coronavirus on February 6th up in San Jose, in the Bay Area. And now the federal researchers have confirmed that coronavirus was in California in December.
Correct.
And there were a lot of people who were infected in December, and I'm not sure if it was November as well, but I know for a fact it was December. So coronavirus was here running rampant for months and months and months. I think one of the reasons why it hit us like New York was, you're absolutely right. We don't have this mass transportation. We were safer in our own individual cars. Number one person gets sick on a mass transportation, you don't get 10 or 20 other people sick. You get yourself sick. That's number one. And number two is we live in an outdoor environment, not indoor environment like New York does. We like going outside in California. Our weather is nice. We like hiking and biking and walking and enjoying the great outdoors. That's a prelude to, or not prelude, that is a requirement to live in California almost,
Mhm.
In New York, they're all huddled inside because it's freezing cold. I mean, one sick person goes on public transportation, infects 10 or 20 other people or 5 people, and then goes into a crowded bar or restaurant where it's hot, where it's recirculating air, and they're next to each other, crammed in small places, small environments. There's pizza shops that are small, their bars and nightclubs are small, their restaurants are small, their meeting areas are small, everyone's all very close to each other. The ability to transmit the virus is very great. There was a party up in RPV this last March, I think it was, and 10 people I think got infected because there was a small close environment. There was a couple people who were observing social distancing and not handshaking, and they did not get sick. So it all depends. There's a lot of other factors involved, and I think what we're doing now, reopening everything up with social distancing, with face masks, with washing your hands, is good enough. So
No.
any other questions?
No, I was just talking about the letter. All that other stuff is fine, but I was specifically talking about the letter. Okay.
Yeah, we completely got off topic there. Somebody had a question here. Is there a way to prevent construction trucks from going down residential streets? Not really. That's a very hard thing to do. I mean, they can't, construction trucks can't use residential streets as thoroughways or pathways. They can use PCH and highways. They can only use it for actual deliveries. So can we remove the meeting at the Performing Arts Center to allow for distancing? Oh, you know, that's a good, can we move the meeting? Yeah, that's a good idea. Move the meeting to the Performing Arts Center, allowing people to set up there. I don't think everyone's thought about that. That's a phenomenal point. I will tell you right now what staff will say, and then say, oh, it's too difficult. We don't have the broadcast equipment. We don't have the AV equipment. We don't have the technology infrastructure to be able to do that. But I don't agree with that. I think we could figure it out. I mean, listen, there's no reason why webcams and microphones wouldn't be able to work. I don't see that not possible. That's a great question. I'm going to have to bring that up. Let me write that down right now. Not use RB. I like having these meetings. You guys bring up some good points. good question. All right. Anything else?
Nils, I had one thing I wanted to thank you, Councilmember Lowenstein and Mayor Brand, for pushing back on the money that we were getting for emergency use for the COVID funding. From what I understand, the three council members from up north wanted to spend, was it $65,000 on cleaning empty buses that weren't being used. Yet you and Mr. Lowenstein and Mayor Brand fought back. Actually, it came back later in the meeting, and you actually got monies for more deserving causes, I think, than cleaning empty buses. And for people that know, it wasn't like something like $60,000 or $80,000 that was put more toward like the 1736. I always get the name wrong. The 1736 clinic.
Family Crisis Center.
Yeah, for battery.
So there was we had some CDBG funding, community development block grant from the feds. They want to spend some $60,000 to decontaminate and clean, sanitize the Beach Cities transit bus that no one uses. That was an absurd use of funds. And so I redirected the Harbor Interfaith that deals with $30,000, $28,000 to them for deals with the COVID response for homelessness and Project Room Key and other services that they're doing here in Redondo. $5,500 for Councilman Grand deserves some credit as well for getting for some kids group in North Redondo. I forgot exactly what their name was. And then the Family Crisis Center here in Redondo Beach as well for Family Crisis Center. I think it was either that or some place on Camino Real for children's teeth and dental activities. So they got $8,600 as well. So that was great work. I'm glad we came together on that. Ended up being a hard fought victory and won, but it was unanimous in the end. So our county library is open for pickups. I don't know. I don't think so. We don't have any county libraries here in Redondo. Our libraries are still closed. So any other questions? I don't see anything here in the chat box. I don't see anything in my inbox. I think we got to everything. So thank you guys very much for your participation. I appreciate it. It was streamed live on YouTube as well. So when I get this meeting recording done, I'll post it online so everyone can watch as well. So thank you guys all very much for your time and effort, taking your time out of your day to be a part of this. Civic community engagement is very important, and it's awesome that you guys brought so many great questions and great points. I'll be bringing these back to Tuesday to the budget meeting, as well as privately to some of the city staff. So thank you guys very much, and have a great Saturday afternoon. See you later, everyone.